The distant crack of gunfire echoed over the rolling plains as Amelia Oates clung to the rotting log that had kept her from being swept away. Her lungs burned with each ragged breath, her sodden dress weighing her down as she pulled herself inch by painful inch onto the muddy riverbank. The water that had nearly claimed her life still roared behind her, swollen from 3 days of relentless spring rain that had transformed the normally peaceful Cimarron River into a raging monster. Wyoming Territory, 1873, was unforgiving to those who underestimated it. Amelia's fingers dug into the wet earth as consciousness threatened to abandon her. The stagecoach attack had been swift and merciless. 4 men in dusty bandanas who appeared from nowhere as they crossed the shallow ford. Now the coach was gone, the driver dead, and the other passengers. She couldn't bear to think about their fate. The current had carried her for what felt like miles before she'd managed to grab hold of anything. Her temple throbbed where it had struck something in the water. Blood mixed with river water trickled down her face as she dragged herself a few feet from the water's edge before her strength gave out. The late afternoon sun beat down on her shivering form as darkness crept into the edges of her vision. "Just need to rest," she whispered to no one, her voice barely audible over the rushing water. Her eyelids grew heavy, and despite knowing the danger, she couldn't fight the exhaustion any longer. A shadow fell across her face sometime later. Amelia couldn't tell if minutes or hours had passed. Her eyes fluttered open to see a man kneeling beside her, his features blurred by the setting sun behind him. She flinched away, terror giving her a momentary burst of strength. "Easy now," a deep voice said, gentle despite its roughness. "You're safe now." Strong arms carefully lifted her from the mud, and Amelia caught a glimpse of a weathered face beneath a wide-brimmed hat before unconsciousness finally claimed her. Liam O'Malley had been tracking a small herd of strays when he'd spotted something unusual at the river's edge. At first, he'd thought it might be a deer or perhaps debris from the recent flooding. It wasn't until he dismounted and approached that he realized it was a woman, half drowned and barely clinging to life. "Hang on," he murmured, though he doubted she could hear him anymore. He cradled her against his chest as he whistled for his horse. The buckskin gelding approached cautiously, nostrils flaring at the unfamiliar scent. Liam assessed her, quickly breathing shallow but steady, a nasty gash on her temple, lips tinged blue with cold despite the warm spring day. She needed shelter, dry clothes, and medical attention. His cabin was a good hour's ride away, but it was her best chance. With practiced ease, he mounted his horse while still holding her, arranging her across his lap before urging the buckskin into a steady lope toward home. Her wet clothes soaked through his shirt, but he hardly noticed. His mind was already calculating what supplies he had on hand to treat her injuries. As they rode, Liam scanned the horizon. Whatever or whoever had left her in that river might still be around. The distant smoke of a campfire caught his attention, but it was miles away, likely trappers or travelers. Still, he adjusted his course slightly, taking a route that offered more cover through a stand of cottonwoods. The sun was low when his cabin came into view, a sturdy structure of pine logs nestled against a rocky outcropping that provided natural protection from the harsh winter winds. A small corral stood empty beside it. His other horses were out to pasture. Smoke drifted lazily from the stone chimney. Ellie must have come by to check on things while he was out. As if summoned by his thoughts, the cabin door swung open, and a gray-haired woman emerged, wiping her hands on her apron. "Liam, I was beginning to worry you'd." Ellie Hawkins stopped short when she noticed the burden in his arms. "Lord have mercy, what happened?" "Found her by the river," Liam explained, carefully dismounting. "Half drowned, might have been in the water for hours." Ellie's expression shifted from surprise to determination. The widow had been a midwife and healer in these parts for over 30 years, and Liam had never been more grateful for her presence than at this moment. "Bring her inside," she commanded, already turning back toward the door. "I'll get water boiling." The cabin's interior was simple but well-maintained, a main room with a stone fireplace, wooden table with 4 chairs, and a cooking area, with a small bedroom partitioned off at the back. Liam carried the woman to his bed, laying her down as gently as possible. "We need to get her out of these wet things," Ellie said, already working at the buttons of the woman's dress. "You go tend to your horse and fetch more firewood. This girl's going to need plenty of warmth." Liam nodded, relieved to have Ellie take charge. He wasn't squeamish around injuries. Ranching life had seen to that, but the intimacies of undressing and caring for an unconscious woman were best left to someone with Ellie's experience. Outside, he unsaddled his horse and rubbed him down before turning him into the corral with some fresh hay. Then he split additional firewood, his mind drifting to the woman. Who was she? What had happened? The Cimarron wasn't a place folks went swimming for pleasure, especially not in spring when the snowmelt made it treacherous. By the time he returned with an armload of split pine, Ellie had changed the woman into one of his clean shirts and tucked her under several blankets. A pot of something fragrant simmered over the fire, and Ellie was carefully cleaning the wound on the woman's temple. "How is she?" Liam asked, setting the wood beside the hearth. "She's strong," Ellie replied. "Breathing's good and her color's improving. This head wound isn't as bad as it looked once I cleaned away the blood. Nasty bruising along her side, though. Looks like she hit something hard in that river." Liam pulled a chair beside the bed, studying the woman's face for the first time without panic or urgency. She was young, mid-20s, perhaps with delicate features and hair the color of chestnuts. Even pale and injured, there was something striking about her. "Any idea who she might be?" Ellie asked, applying a salve to the wound. Liam shook his head. "Never seen her before. Might be from one of the new settlements or maybe passing through on the stage." "Speaking of which," Ellie said, "Ben Matthews rode through this morning saying the Butterfield stage never made it to Dover Station yesterday. They've sent riders out looking, but with that storm." A chill that had nothing to do with the evening air settled over Liam. If she'd been on that missing stagecoach, whatever had happened must have been catastrophic for her to end up alone in the river. "I'll ride to Dover tomorrow, let them know," Liam decided. "See if anyone's looking for her." Ellie nodded, wrapping a clean bandage around the woman's head. "I can stay tonight. Mary's with the grandchildren, so no one's expecting me back." "I appreciate it," Liam said, running a hand through his dark hair. At 32, he'd been on his own for over a decade, building his small ranch from nothing. He'd patched up wounded men, delivered calves, and once even set his own broken arm, but this situation was beyond his experience. As night fell, they took turns watching over her. Ellie insisted Liam get some rest, making a pallet for herself beside the fire. He tried to sleep on the floor of the main room, but found himself checking on their guest every hour or so, listening to her breathing, feeling her forehead for fever. It was just before dawn when she first stirred. Liam had taken over the watch while Ellie slept, and he was adding another log to the fire when he heard a soft moan from the bed. He moved quickly to her side, speaking quietly. "You're all right. You're safe." The woman's eyelids fluttered, then opened fully, revealing eyes the color of amber. For a moment, she simply stared at him, confusion evident on her face. Then terror replaced the confusion, and she tried to sit up, crying out in pain as she did so. "Easy," Liam said, gently pressing her shoulders back down. "You're hurt. You need to rest. Where am I?" Her voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. "Who are you?" My name's Liam O'Malley. This is my cabin about 15 miles northeast of Dover Station. I found you by the Cimarron yesterday afternoon." She blinked slowly, processing his words. Her hand moved to the bandage on her head, wincing as her fingers made contact. "The stagecoach," she murmured. "They attacked us at the crossing." "Who attacked you?" Liam asked, keeping his voice calm despite the anger building inside him. "4 men, masked." She swallowed with difficulty, and Liam quickly poured water from a pitcher beside the bed, helping her take small sips. "They shot the driver, then the horses panicked. We went into the river. The coach overturned." Tears welled in her eyes. "The others. There was a young mother with her baby. An older gentleman. They were all inside when it went under." Liam's jaw tightened. Stagecoach robberies weren't uncommon, but this level of brutality was. "How did you get away?" "I was thrown clear somehow," she said, her voice strengthening slightly. "The current was so strong. I thought I would drown. I managed to grab onto something, a branch, I think, but I couldn't pull myself out. I just kept holding on until the river narrowed and I could reach the bank." The fact that she'd survived at all was remarkable. The spring Cimarron was notorious for its deadly currents. "You're safe now," he repeated, the words feeling inadequate against the horrors she described. "I'm sorry about the others." Her eyes closed briefly, a tear escaping down her cheek. When she opened them again, they held a different kind of fear. "Those men, they could still be looking for me. I saw their faces when one of their masks slipped." The implications weren't lost on Liam. Witnesses to such brutality rarely lived long if the perpetrators had anything to say about it. "You don't need to worry about that right now," he assured her. "No one will find you here. First light, I'll ride to Dover Station, let the sheriff know what happened." She nodded weakly, then seemed to realize something. "My name," she said. "I haven't told you my name. It's Amelia Oates." "Miss Oates," Liam acknowledged with a slight nod. "Try to rest. My friend Ellie has been helping care for you. She's asleep by the fire. She'll be glad to see you awake." "Thank you," Amelia whispered, her eyelids growing heavy again. "For finding me, for helping." Liam watched as she drifted back to sleep, her features relaxing into a peacefulness that belied the trauma she'd endured. Something protective stirred in his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. As the first rays of dawn broke through the cabin's small window, Liam moved quietly to wake Ellie and share the news that their guest had briefly regained consciousness. They had a long road ahead, but Amelia Oates was a survivor. That much was already clear. True to his word, Liam set out for Dover Station as soon as he'd had a quick breakfast. Ellie promised to stay with Amelia, armed with Liam's old shotgun, a precaution that needed no explanation between them. The ride gave Liam time to think. If Amelia had indeed witnessed a stagecoach robbery gone horribly wrong, she was in danger until the perpetrators were caught. Dover Station was a small settlement, with a sheriff's office that handled mostly drunk cowboys and petty disputes. This situation would require additional resources. Dover Station came into view by mid-morning, a cluster of wooden buildings along a dusty main street that served as a waypoint for travelers, and a supply center for nearby ranches and farms. Liam rode directly to the sheriff's office, tying his horse at the hitching post outside. Sheriff Wilson was a balding man in his 50s with a perpetually worried expression that had only deepened with age. He looked up from his desk as Liam entered, recognition immediately crossing his face. "O'Malley," he greeted, setting aside the papers he'd been reviewing. "What brings you to town? Trouble with rustlers again?" "Something worse," Liam said, removing his hat as he approached the desk. "That missing stagecoach, I found a survivor yesterday." Wilson's expression shifted to shock, then intense focus. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Tell me everything." Liam recounted finding Amelia and what little she'd told him about the attack, watching as the sheriff's face grew increasingly grim. 4 masked men, Wilson repeated when Liam had finished. And she says she saw one of their faces. That's right. Wilson sighed heavily, rubbing his forehead. I sent 2 deputies out yesterday to search for the coach. They found it this morning about 6 miles upriver from where you say you found the woman. 3 bodies inside driver, a man and a woman. No sign of a baby. The news hit Liam like a physical blow. God help them. The deputies are bringing the bodies in today. We'll need your guest to identify them if she's able. Wilson hesitated. You said she's at your place? Liam nodded. She's in no condition to travel yet. My neighbor Ellie Hawkins is with her. Might be best to keep her there for now, Wilson decided. Word's already spreading about the robbery if those men learn there's a witness. He left the thought unfinished. I was thinking the same, Liam agreed. Has anyone reported her missing? Family looking for her. Wilson consulted a ledger on his desk. Passenger manifest lists an A. Oates traveling from Kansas City to Santa Fe. No one's come asking after her specifically, but we've had telegrams from the stage company and authorities in both cities. Liam felt a strange relief that no husband or father was searching for her, then immediately chastised himself for the thought. This wasn't the time for such considerations. I'll send a wire to Santa Fe, let them know she's alive, Wilson continued. Meanwhile, I'm going to request assistance from the territorial marshal. This isn't just a robbery anymore, it's murder, plain and simple. She'll need to stay somewhere safe until those men are caught, Liam pointed out. My place is isolated, hard to find unless you know it's there. Wilson studied him for a moment. You offering to keep her, O'Malley? Until she's recovered enough to travel or until it's safe, Liam clarified, though something about the sheriff's phrasing unsettled him. It's the decent thing to do. It is, Wilson agreed. But it might also be a long commitment. These things can take time to resolve, especially out here where lawmen are spread thin. I understand. After providing Wilson with detailed directions to his cabin, in case we need to reach you quickly, Liam headed to the general store to purchase supplies. If Amelia would be staying with him for an extended period, there were things she would need that his bachelor household didn't provide. Mrs. Peterson, the storekeeper's wife, raised her eyebrows at his requests for women's toiletries and a nightgown, but Liam offered no explanations beyond for a guest. Small towns thrived on gossip, and the fewer details circulating, the safer Amelia would be. He was securing his purchases to his saddle when a voice called out to him. O'Malley, heard you were in town. Liam turned to see Thomas Reed approaching, a local rancher whose property bordered his to the south. Reed was a decent neighbor, but had a reputation for knowing everyone's business and sharing it freely. Reed, Liam acknowledged with a nod, just picking up supplies. Reed's eyes drifted to the parcels tied to Liam's horse. Mighty interesting supplies for a man living alone. Is there something you needed? Liam asked, deliberately ignoring the implied question. Reed shrugged, seemingly unbothered by Liam's curtness. Just wondering if you'd heard about the stagecoach robbery. Terrible business. Sheriff's deputies found the wreckage this morning. I heard, Liam said simply. Word is they're still missing one passenger, Reed continued, watching Liam's face carefully. Young woman traveling alone. Liam kept his expression neutral. The river was high after those rains. Might have carried her miles downstream if she went in the water. Might have, Reed agreed, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. Well, if you hear anything, I'm sure the sheriff would appreciate knowing. I'll keep that in mind, Liam said, mounting his horse. Good day, Reed. As he rode out of town, Liam couldn't shake the feeling of unease that conversation had left him with. Reed was harmless enough, but his interest and the specific mention of a missing female passenger felt deliberate. Perhaps he was being paranoid, but with Amelia's safety at stake, caution seemed justified. The return journey took longer than the ride in, as Liam deliberately chose less traveled paths and stopped frequently to ensure he wasn't being followed. It was mid-afternoon when he finally approached his cabin, relieved to see smoke still rising from the chimney and no signs of disturbance. Ellie met him at the door, a finger pressed to her lips. "She's just fallen asleep again," she explained in a whisper as Liam entered. "Been awake most of the day, though. Fever came and went, but I think she's past the worst of it now." "How's the head wound?" Liam asked, setting his purchases on the table, looking cleaner. "She's got a powerful headache, but her thoughts are clear." Ellie nodded toward the packages. "I see you came prepared for a longer stay. Sheriff thinks it's best she remains here for now, at least until they catch the men responsible." Liam kept his voice low. "They found the stagecoach. The others didn't make it, except possibly the baby. They haven't found it yet." Ellie crossed herself. "That poor girl. She's been asking about the others, but I didn't know what to tell her." "I'll talk to her when she wakes," Liam said, though he dreaded the conversation. "Did she say anything else while I was gone, about herself or the attack?" "She's from Philadelphia originally," Ellie said, moving to put on coffee. "Was heading to Santa Fe to take a position as a school teacher. Seems educated, has a gentle way of speaking." Liam absorbed this information as he unpacked the supplies. A school teacher from the East, far from home and everything familiar, now thrust into the middle of a violent tragedy. It was a cruel twist of fate. "She asked about you, too," Ellie added, a hint of amusement in her tone despite the somber circumstances. "Me?" Liam looked up, surprised. "What about me?" "Wanted to know if you were married, how long you'd lived here." Ellie smiled faintly. "I told her you're as confirmed a bachelor as they come, but decent enough for all that." Liam felt his ears grow warm. "She was probably just trying to understand whose home she's in." "Probably," Ellie agreed, though her expression suggested she thought otherwise. "I should head back before dark. Will you be all right on your own with her?" "We'll manage," Liam assured her. "Thank you for staying, Ellie. I don't know what I'd have done without your help." After seeing Ellie off with promises to visit again soon, Liam set about preparing a simple dinner, keeping an ear tuned for any sounds from the bedroom. He was slicing bread when he heard movement, followed by a soft gasp of pain. He found Amelia attempting to sit up, one hand pressed against her ribs. She looked up as he entered, her expression a mixture of relief and embarrassment. "I was trying to get up," she explained, "but it seems I'm not quite ready for that yet." "There's no rush," Liam said, approaching the bed. "Do you need help sitting up? I was just making dinner." She nodded, and he carefully supported her shoulders as she shifted into a sitting position, arranging pillows behind her back. The contact was brief but left him oddly unsettled. "Thank you," she said, adjusting the oversized shirt she wore his shirt, Liam realized with a start. "For everything. Mrs. Hawkins told me how you found me and brought me here." "Anyone would have done the same," Liam said, uncomfortable with her gratitude. A small, sad smile crossed her face. "We both know that's not true, Mr. O'Malley. There are plenty in this world who would have ridden past or worse." There was a wisdom in her eyes that spoke of experiences beyond her years. Liam found himself wondering what had shaped her, what journey had led her from Philadelphia to a teaching position in the territories. "You can call me Liam," he said, instead of pursuing those thoughts. "Mr. O'Malley was my father, and he's been gone these 15 years. "Liam, then," she agreed. "And I'm Amelia, though I believe I told you that already." "You did," he confirmed. "How are you feeling today?" Like I've been dragged through a river and beaten with rocks, she answered, her attempted humor undermined by the pain evident in her voice. But alive, which is more than I expected yesterday. Liam hesitated, knowing he needed to tell her about the others but reluctant to burden her further. Something in his expression must have given him away because her face fell. "You went to town," she stated flatly. "They found the coach, didn't they?" He nodded, seeing no point in delaying the inevitable. "This morning. I'm sorry, Amelia. The driver and the other 2 adult passengers didn't survive." She closed her eyes, tears spilling down her cheeks despite the effort she made to contain them. "And the baby? They haven't found the child yet," Liam admitted. "The sheriff's men are still searching." A sob escaped her, quickly muffled by her hand. Liam stood awkwardly beside the bed, uncertain whether to offer comfort or give her privacy in her grief. "His name was James," she said after a moment, her voice steadier than he'd expected. "The baby. His mother called him Jamie. He was only 8 months old, traveling to meet his father who'd gone ahead to build their home." The personal details made the tragedy even more heartbreaking. Liam thought of the tiny body that might never be recovered, the father waiting for a reunion that would never come. "I'm sorry," he said again, the words wholly inadequate. "It's not your fault," Amelia replied, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "There's the men who did this. And they're still out there, aren't they?" "For now," Liam acknowledged. "The sheriff is contacting the territorial marshal. They'll find them, Amelia." "And in the meantime," she asked, her perceptiveness once again surprising him. "In the meantime, you'll stay here and recover," Liam said. "My cabin's remote, difficult to find unless you know where to look. You'll be safe here until they're caught or until you're well enough to travel someplace more secure." She studied him, as if trying to determine his motives. "That's very generous. I hate to impose on your hospitality for so long." "It's no imposition," Liam assured her. "I've plenty of room and I'm often away tending to the ranch during the day. You'll hardly notice my presence." "Still, I should contribute somehow once I'm able," she insisted. "I can cook, clean, mend. I won't be a burden." Her determination to maintain her dignity despite her circumstances touched something in Liam. "We'll figure that out when you're stronger," he said. "For now, are you hungry? I've got stew nearly ready." The change of subject seemed to relieve her, and she nodded. "Starving, actually. I don't think I've eaten since yesterday morning before the stage." "I'll bring you a bowl," Liam promised. "And I picked up some things for you in town, nothing fancy, but there's a nightgown that might be more comfortable than my old shirt." A blush colored her cheeks. "That was thoughtful of you. I'll reimburse you for the expense, of course." "No need," Liam said, already turning toward the door to hide his own discomfort. "Consider it Western hospitality." As he returned to the kitchen, Liam found himself contemplating the unexpected turn his solitary life had taken. Yesterday morning, he'd risen before dawn, ridden out to check on strays, and expected nothing more eventful than perhaps spotting a mountain lion in the distance. Now, he was harboring a witness to a brutal crime, a woman whose presence in his home stirred feelings he'd long ago set aside in favor of the uncomplicated life he'd built. The days that followed established a tentative routine. Amelia grew stronger rapidly, moving from bed to chair by the 3rd day after Liam found her, and taking short walks around the cabin by the end of the week. Her determination was remarkable, pushing through pain and exhaustion with a quiet dignity that earned Liam's admiration. For his part, Liam tried to maintain a respectful distance, giving her privacy while ensuring she had everything she needed. He spent his days working the ranch, returning to prepare meals and check on her progress. Their conversations over dinner gradually expanded beyond her recovery. And the news from town, No sign yet of the robbers, though descriptions had been circulated to more personal matters. He learned that Amelia was 26, the daughter of a Philadelphia lawyer who had died 2 years prior, leaving her with limited means but an excellent education. Her mother had passed when she was a child, and with no siblings or close relations, she decided to seek opportunity in the West. "My father always said I had an adventurous spirit," she told Liam one evening as they sat before the fire, she in the rocking chair he'd carried in from the porch, he mending a bridle at the table. "I think he would have been proud of my decision, even if he would have worried." "It was brave," Liam agreed, glancing up from his work. "Many would have sought the security of the familiar." Amelia smiled ruefully. "I'm not certain brave is the word, given how disastrously my adventure has unfolded so far." "You survived what would have killed most," Liam pointed out. "That took both courage and strength." A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the soft creak of the rocking chair. Liam found these quiet evenings increasingly agreeable, despite his customary preference for solitude. There was something about Amelia's presence that enhanced rather than intruded upon his home. On the 10th day, Sheriff Wilson rode out to the cabin, bringing news that the territorial marshal was taking over the investigation and requesting Amelia's formal statement. "They've identified 2 of the 4 men," Wilson explained as they sat at Liam's table. "Brothers named Calhoun, known troublemakers from up near the Colorado border. No sign of them yet, but they've been spotted in Dodge City a week ago." Amelia listened intently, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "And the others? The 2 I didn't see clearly." "Nothing concrete," Wilson admitted, "but the marshal thinks they might be local, given their knowledge of the stagecoach route and timing." The implication hung heavily in the air. If the accomplices were from the area, they could be anyone: townspeople, ranch hands, travelers passing through. The danger to Amelia remained very real. "I need you to write down everything you remember," Wilson said, placing paper and pencil before her. "Every detail, no matter how small it might seem. What they wore, how they spoke, anything distinctive about them." As Amelia bent to the task, Wilson drew Liam outside under the pretense of looking at his horses. "She can't stay here indefinitely," the sheriff said once they were out of earshot. "The marshal wants to move her somewhere more secure until the trial." "She's still recovering," Liam protested, surprising himself with the force of his objection. "And she's safe here. No one knows she survived except you, Ellie, and me." Wilson gave him a long look. "Rumors travel, O'Malley. People notice things like a bachelor suddenly buying women's things in town, and Reed's been asking questions." A cold knot formed in Liam's stomach. "What kind of questions?" "About your house guest. Says his ranch hand spotted smoke from your chimney when you were in town that first day." Wilson shook his head. "I didn't confirm anything, but Reed's persistent, and if he's noticed, others might have too." The implications were clear. If word reached the wrong ears, Amelia could be in grave danger. "Give us another week," Liam requested. "She's not strong enough for travel yet, and moving her too soon might do more harm than good." Wilson considered this. "1 week," he finally agreed. "Then the marshal will send men to escort her to Denver. She'll be safer there, in a proper city with a full police force." Liam nodded, though the thought of Amelia leaving stirred an unexpected resistance within him. It was the right decision, the safest option for her, but the prospect of returning to his solitary existence no longer held the appeal it once had. When they returned inside, Amelia was finishing her statement, her handwriting neat despite the tremor in her hand. She looked up as they entered, her expression reflecting both determination and fear. "I've included everything I can remember," she said, handing the papers to Wilson. "I hope it helps catch them." "It will," Wilson assured her, scanning the pages. "This is exactly what the marshal needs." He tucked the statement into his coat. "Miss Oates, I should inform you that arrangements are being made for your protection. In about a week, you'll be escorted to Denver, where you'll remain until the trial." Amelia's gaze flickered to Liam before returning to the sheriff. "I understand," she said softly. "Thank you for your concern for my safety." After Wilson departed, a strange tension filled the cabin. Liam busied himself with preparing dinner, aware of Amelia watching him from the table. "You knew," she finally said, "about them wanting to move me." Liam nodded, not turning from the stove. "Wilson mentioned it outside. It's for the best, Amelia. Denver has resources we don't have here." "I know," she agreed, though her tone suggested reluctance. "And I've imposed on your hospitality long enough." Now Liam did turn, surprised by her words. "You haven't imposed, it's been—" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's been a pleasure having you here." The simple statement hung in the air between them, carrying more weight than he'd intended. Amelia's eyes widened slightly, a blush coloring her cheeks. "It's been a pleasure being here," she replied after a moment, "despite the circumstances." Something shifted between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been developing beneath the surface of their daily interactions. Liam felt his heart beat faster as they held each other's gaze across the small room. The spell was broken by the pot boiling over, hissing as it hit the hot stove. Liam turned quickly to move it, using the distraction to collect himself. What was he thinking? Amelia was his guest, a woman under his protection, someone who would be leaving in a week. Any attachment would only lead to disappointment. Yet as they ate dinner that evening, Liam found himself storing away small details, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, how her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled, the graceful movement of her hands as she spoke. He was mapping her, memorizing her for the time when she would no longer be present. The week passed both too quickly and too slowly. Amelia's strength returned more fully, allowing her to venture outside and explore the immediate surroundings of the cabin. Liam showed her his small garden, the creek that provided clear water year-round, the meadow where wildflowers had begun to bloom in the late spring sunshine. "It's beautiful here," she commented as they stood at the edge of the meadow on their third walk together. "So peaceful." "That's why I chose it," Liam said, watching a red-tailed hawk circle lazily overhead. "After the war, I needed somewhere quiet." "You fought?" Amelia asked, turning to study his face. Liam nodded, his gaze still on the distant hawk. "Union cavalry, saw things I've spent years trying to forget." It wasn't something he spoke of often or ever, really. The war had left scars that went deeper than the physical one that ran along his left ribs. But something about Amelia made it easier to share pieces of himself he usually kept hidden. "My father was too old to fight," she said after a moment, "but he worked with the Sanitary Commission, helping to coordinate medical supplies. He said the hardest part was knowing it was never enough." There was understanding in her voice rather than pity, and Liam found himself grateful for it. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the hawk until it disappeared behind the distant hills. "We should head back," Liam finally said, noting the position of the sun. "It'll be dark soon." As they walked, Amelia's hand occasionally brushed against his, each contact sending a current through him that was both alarming and exhilarating. By the time they reached the cabin, Liam had made a decision he hoped he wouldn't regret. "Amelia," he said as they paused at the door, "would you join me for a proper dinner tomorrow, not just the usual meal, but something special?" She looked surprised, then pleased. "I'd like that very much." The next day, Liam rode to town under the pretense of checking for messages from the marshal. His real purpose was to purchase supplies for the dinner he had planned: a bottle of decent wine, fresh bread from the baker, and even a small cake from Mrs. Peterson's shop. It was extravagant by his standards, but he wanted to give Amelia one pleasant memory of her time at the cabin before she left. Mrs. Peterson raised an eyebrow at his selections, but made no comment beyond. "Seems your guest is feeling better, Mr. O'Malley." "She is, thank you," Liam replied, refusing to be drawn into elaboration. As he was loading his purchases onto his horse, a voice called out to him from across the street. "O'Malley." A word. Thomas Reed was crossing toward him, his expression unreadable. Liam tensed, remembering the sheriff's warning about Reed's questions. "Reed," he acknowledged with a nod. "What can I do for you?" Reed glanced at the packages tied to Liam's saddle. Quite the shopping list for a man who usually lives on coffee and jerky. "Did you need something specific?" Liam asked, deliberately ignoring the implied question. Reed's friendly expression hardened slightly. "Just wondering if you've heard the news. They caught one of the Calhoun brothers in Dodge City yesterday, shot him when he resisted arrest." The information was both welcome and concerning. "Good," Liam said. "One down, 3 to go. Word is he talked before he died," Reed continued, watching Liam's reaction carefully, "gave up his partners." Liam kept his expression neutral, though his heart rate increased. "That's so. That's the rumor," Reed confirmed. "Marshals should be making arrests any day now, they say." "Good news all around, then," Liam said, mounting his horse. "If you'll excuse me, I've got a long ride back." As he rode out of town, Liam couldn't shake the uneasy feeling Reed's conversation had left him with. Something about the man's interest felt wrong, too pointed to be mere curiosity. He found himself taking an even more circuitous route home than usual, frequently checking behind him for any sign of pursuit. The cabin was peaceful when he arrived, with Amelia sitting on the porch, a book in her lap. She looked up as he approached, her face brightening in a way that made his chest tighten. "Did you get your messages?" she asked as he dismounted. "No messages," he replied, beginning to unload his purchases. "But I heard some news. They caught one of the Calhoun brothers in Dodge City." Amelia's expression shifted to one of cautious hope. "Is he in custody?" "No," Liam admitted. "He resisted, apparently. But Reed, a neighbor, says the man talked before he died, identified his accomplices." "That's good news, isn't it?" Amelia asked, though her tone suggested she sensed his reservation. Liam hesitated, not wanting to worry her but unwilling to withhold potential concerns. "It is," he finally said, though Reed's interest in the matter felt unusual. "He's been asking questions about my house guest." Alarm flashed across Amelia's face. "Do you think he suspects I'm here?" "That I survived? It's possible," Liam acknowledged. "But even if he does, he doesn't know what you witnessed, and the marshal's men will be here in 2 days to escort you to Denver." Amelia nodded, though her expression remained troubled. "2 more days," she murmured, almost to herself. "2 more days," Liam echoed, his tone softening. "But tonight we have dinner to look forward to." The reminder of their planned evening seemed to dispel some of her worry. "I should help you prepare," she offered, rising from her seat. "Not tonight," Liam insisted. "Tonight you're my guest. No helping, no working." Despite her protests, he maintained this position, sending her to rest while he prepared what he hoped would be a memorable meal. He wasn't much of a cook under normal circumstances, but for this occasion he made a special effort, following recipes his mother had taught him long ago. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the cabin floor, Liam set the table with his best dishes, which weren't particularly fine, but were at least matched and unbroken. He placed a small vase of wildflowers at the center and lit candles instead of the usual oil lamp. Amelia emerged from the bedroom wearing the dress Ellie had brought for her, a simple blue calico that complemented her eyes and fit her better than his oversized shirts had. She had arranged her hair differently, loosely pinned up with tendrils framing her face. The effect was striking. "You look beautiful," Liam said before he could stop himself, her cheeks colored at the compliment. "Thank you. Ellie helped me mend the dress. It's not what I'm used to, but it's nice to feel presentable again." "More than presentable," Liam assured her, pulling out a chair for her at the table. Dinner was simple by Eastern standards but luxurious for the frontier: roast venison with herbs, potatoes, fresh bread, and wine, followed by the cake he'd purchased in town. Throughout the meal, their conversation flowed easily, touching on books they'd both read, places they'd seen, memories of childhood. As they finished the cake, Amelia grew thoughtful. "May I ask you something personal, Liam?" "Of course," he replied, though a hint of wariness crept into his tone. "Why do you live alone out here? You're educated, capable. You could have built a life in town or even back east." It was a question no one had asked him directly before, though he'd seen the curiosity in others' eyes over the years. "After the war," he began slowly, "I couldn't settle back into ordinary life. Everything felt wrong somehow. Too loud, too crowded, too full of reminders." He paused, considering how to explain the inexplicable. "I came west because there was space here, room to breathe, to think. I didn't intend to stay isolated forever, but each year it became easier to remain apart than to rejoin the world." Amelia nodded, understanding in her eyes. "And now, do you ever wish for something different?" The question hit closer to home than she could know. "Lately," he admitted, holding her gaze, "I've been reconsidering certain decisions." Something passed between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of possibilities neither had voiced aloud. Amelia's hand rested on the table, and after a moment's hesitation, Liam covered it with his own. Her skin was soft beneath his calloused fingers, and she didn't pull away. "Amelia," he began, uncertain what he intended to say but knowing he needed to say something before she left. A sharp crack interrupted him, the unmistakable sound of a rifle shot, followed by the thud of a bullet embedding itself in the cabin wall. Liam reacted instantly, lunging across the table to pull Amelia to the floor as another shot splintered the window. "Stay down," he ordered, crawling toward the rifle he kept beside the door. Away from the windows, Amelia pressed herself against the floor, her breathing rapid but controlled. "How many?" she whispered. "Can't tell," Liam replied, reaching his weapon and checking that it was loaded. "At least one, maybe more," a voice called from outside, confirming his fears. "We know she's in there, O'Malley. Send her out and you might live to see morning." Liam recognized the voice with a sick feeling in his gut. Thomas Reid. The pieces fell into place: Reed's unusual interest, his pointed questions, the specific knowledge about the stagecoach robbery. He wasn't just a nosy neighbor, he was one of the robbers. "There's a trapdoor under the rug by the pantry," Liam told Amelia, his voice barely audible. "It leads to a root cellar. Get down there and stay quiet, no matter what you hear." "I'm not leaving you to face them alone," she protested, her eyes wide with fear but her jaw set with determination. "You have to," Liam insisted. "You're the only witness who can identify them. If something happens to me, wait until it's quiet, then use the tunnel at the back of the cellar. It comes out by the creek, a quarter-mile downstream. Follow the creek east until you reach the main road, then head south to Dover Station." Another shot hit the cabin, this one lower, as if the shooter was aiming at where they might be taking cover. Time was running out. "Go," Liam urged. "Please, Amelia, I can hold them off longer if I know you're safe." The look she gave him contained a lifetime of emotions compressed into seconds. Then she nodded once and began crawling toward the pantry. Liam turned his attention to the windows, trying to determine how many attackers they faced and from which directions. "Last chance, O'Malley," Reed called. "Send the woman out or we burn you both out." Liam didn't respond, instead moving to a position where he could see through a crack in the shutters without being easily spotted. In the dim moonlight, he could make out at least 3 figures: Reed and 2 others, all armed, spreading out to surround the cabin. From the corner of his eye, he saw Amelia lift the trapdoor and begin lowering herself into the cellar. Their eyes met one last time before she disappeared, closing the door silently behind her. Alone now, Liam assessed his options. He had his rifle, a revolver at his belt, and a shotgun mounted above the fireplace. Ammunition was limited but adequate for a sustained defense. The cabin itself was solid, built to withstand harsh weather and the occasional hostile visitor. His primary concern was the threat of fire. If they set the cabin ablaze, he would be forced to either flee or burn. Either outcome would leave Amelia vulnerable if they discovered the cellar entrance. Making his decision, Liam fired through the window, aiming just over Reed's head, a warning shot, designed to drive them back rather than kill. The response was immediate, a volley of bullets tearing into the cabin from multiple directions. Using the covering fire to his advantage, Liam moved to another window, took careful aim at one of Reed's companions, and fired. The man cried out and fell, though whether the wound was fatal, Liam couldn't tell. "You're outnumbered, O'Malley," Reed shouted, his voice betraying his anger. "Just give us the woman. She's nothing to you." Liam's response was another shot, this one clipping Reed's shoulder if the yelp of pain was any indication. The attack intensified after that, bullets coming from what seemed like all directions. Liam returned fire sparingly, conserving ammunition and trying to keep track of their positions. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, a deadly dance of shot and counter-shot. Liam was bleeding from a graze along his arm but otherwise unharmed. He'd confirmed at least 3 attackers, possibly a 4th hidden in the trees behind the cabin. The gunfire suddenly ceased, replaced by an ominous silence. Liam tensed, expecting a rush on the door or windows. Instead, the unmistakable smell of smoke reached him. They'd made good on their threat to burn him out. Moving quickly to the back of the cabin, Liam saw the flicker of flames through a window. They'd set fire to the lean to where he stored firewood directly against the cabin wall. It wouldn't take long for the fire to spread. His options narrowing rapidly, Liam made a desperate decision. Taking up the shotgun, he moved to the front door, took a deep breath, and flung it open, firing both barrels into the darkness before diving to one side. The shotgun blast was answered by several rifle shots, but the surprise had worked. He heard cursing and the sound of at least one man falling. Using the confusion, Liam dashed around the side of the cabin, keeping low, his revolver ready. He spotted Reed and another man trying to regroup near the corral. Taking careful aim, Liam fired twice. The unknown man dropped immediately. Reed returned fire, forcing Liam to take cover behind the water trough. "It's over, Reed," Liam called out. "Your friends are down and the fire's spreading. You can leave now or you can die here." "Not without the witness," Reed shouted back, his voice strained with pain and fury. "She saw us. She can identify us." "She's long gone," Liam lied, hoping to draw Reed out. "Sent her to town with Ellie Hawkins this morning. Marshall's men are probably already there." The lie had the desired effect. Reed broke cover, making a desperate dash for his horse. Liam stepped out, took aim, and fired. Reed stumbled, clutching his leg, but managed to reach his horse and haul himself into the saddle. For a moment, Liam considered taking another shot, finishing what Reed had started. But execution wasn't justice, no matter how deserved it might seem. Instead, he watched as Reed spurred his horse away, leaving his wounded and dead companions behind. The immediate danger past, Liam turned his attention to the burning cabin. The fire had spread rapidly, engulfing the entire back wall and roof. There was no saving the structure now. His heart racing, Liam ran to where he knew the root cellar's tunnel exited by the creek. If Amelia had followed his instructions, she would be there, waiting. If not, the thought was too terrible to contemplate. The tunnel entrance was hidden beneath brush and rocks, designed to be overlooked by casual observers. Liam cleared it quickly, calling softly, "Amelia, it's me, Liam." For a moment, there was no response and cold dread washed over him. Then he heard movement, and Amelia emerged from the tunnel, dirt-streaked and trembling but alive. "Liam," she gasped, throwing herself into his arms with such force that he nearly fell. "I heard the shots and then the fire. I thought, I'm all right," he assured her, holding her tightly against him, feeling her heart racing in tandem with his own. "Reed escaped, but the others are down. We need to move quickly, though. He might circle back with reinforcements." Reluctantly releasing her, Liam led the way through the trees toward where he kept his horses pastured. The animals were agitated by the smell of smoke and sound of gunfire, but responded to his familiar voice. "Can you ride?" he asked Amelia, helping her onto his most gentle mare. She nodded, gathering the reins with practiced hands. "I grew up riding." "Where are we going?" "Dover Station," Liam replied, mounting his own horse. "It's our best chance of finding safety and alerting the marshal about Reed." As they rode away, Liam glanced back at his burning home, 10 years of work and memories reduced to flame and smoke against the night sky. Yet strangely, the loss didn't cut as deeply as it should have. The cabin could be rebuilt. What mattered now rode beside him. They traveled through the night, taking a circuitous route to avoid any possible ambush. Amelia kept pace without complaint, though Liam could see the strain of the journey in the set of her shoulders and the tightness around her eyes. Dawn was breaking as they approached Dover Station, the small town just stirring to life. They rode directly to the sheriff's office, dismounting stiffly after the long night. Sheriff Wilson was already there, apparently having worked through the night. He looked up in shock as they entered, taking in their disheveled appearance and Liam's bloody arm. "O'Malley, Miss Oates, what in God's name?" "Thomas Reed," Liam interrupted. "He's one of the stagecoach robbers. He and at least 3 others attacked my cabin last night trying to kill Amelia." Wilson's expression shifted from surprise to grim understanding. "Reed," he repeated. "Can't say I'm entirely shocked. Man's always been too interested in other folks' business." He turned to Amelia. "You can identify him. Place him at the robbery." Amelia nodded wearily. "He wasn't one of the 2 I saw clearly that day, but I heard his voice last night. It was the same voice that ordered the driver to stop the coach." "That's enough to bring him in," Wilson decided. "Where is he now?" "Wounded, heading north last I saw," Liam reported. "Shot in the leg, possibly the shoulder too. He won't get far in that condition." Wilson immediately began writing telegrams to neighboring towns and outposts, alerting them to watch for Reed. "The marshal's men should be here by midday," he told them. "Originally coming for you, Miss Oates, but now they'll have Reed to hunt down as well." "My cabin's gone," Liam added. "They burned it. There might be wounded or dead men there, Reed's accomplices." Wilson nodded. "I'll send deputies out right away." He looked between them, noting their exhaustion. "You 2 should get some rest. Doc Morgan's place is just down the street. He can look at that arm and you can both catch your breath." As they left the sheriff's office, Amelia swayed slightly, the events of the night finally catching up with her. Liam steadied her with a hand at her elbow. "Just a little further," he encouraged her. "Then you can rest." Doc Morgan was a crusty veteran of the frontier who asked few questions as he treated Liam's arm and checked Amelia for injuries. He provided them with a small private room at the back of his surgery, equipped with 2 narrow cots. "Sleep," he ordered. "Sheriff knows where to find you if he needs you." Alone for the first time since the attack, they stood facing each other in the small room, the events of the past 24 hours hanging between them. "I'm sorry about your home," Amelia said softly. "After everything you did for me." Liam shook his head. "It was just a cabin, it can be rebuilt." "Still," she insisted, "you've lost so much because of me." "No," Liam contradicted her gently, "because of Reed and men like him, not because of you." A silence fell between them, filled with all the things they'd almost said at dinner before the attack interrupted them. "What happens now?" Amelia finally asked, the question encompassing far more than just their immediate future. "The Marshal's men will take you to Denver," Liam replied, though the words tasted bitter on his tongue. "You'll be safe there until the trial." "And after?" she pressed, a vulnerability in her eyes that matched the ache in his chest. "After the trial, what then?" It was the opening he needed, the chance to voice what had been growing in his heart since he'd found her by the river. "After," Liam said, taking a step closer to her, "you could come back if you wanted to." Hope flickered across her face. "Back to what, Liam?" "To me," he answered simply. "I'll rebuild the cabin bigger, better. Or we could go somewhere else entirely. Santa Fe if you still want that teaching position, or Philadelphia if you miss the city." "You'd leave your ranch?" Amelia asked, clearly surprised by the offer. "After working so hard to build it," Liam smiled wryly. "Turns out it's not the land or the livestock that matters most to me anymore." He reached out, taking her hands in his. "I know it's fast, perhaps too fast after everything you've been through, but when I found you by that river, something changed for me. I don't want to go back to the solitary life I had before." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes, but they were accompanied by a smile that transformed her tired face. "It is fast," she agreed. "Impossibly fast by Philadelphia standards, but nothing about this has been conventional, has it?" "Not a bit of it," Liam acknowledged, his heart racing with hope. "Then I think," Amelia said, stepping closer until only inches separated them, "that I would very much like to come back, to you, wherever that might be." The gap between them closed, and Liam kissed her with all the tenderness and passion that had been building since he first carried her from the riverbank. Her arms wound around his neck as she returned the kiss with equal fervor, sealing a promise that had formed against all odds. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Liam pressed his forehead against hers. "We should rest," he murmured reluctantly. "There's still Reed to deal with and the Marshal's questions." "And then Denver," Amelia added, the reminder sobering them both. "How long do you think?" "A few months, perhaps," Liam estimated. "But I'll come to you as soon as I can. I'll rebuild what we need here, make arrangements for the livestock, and then I'll be on the first stage to Denver." It wasn't an ideal beginning, but it was a beginning nonetheless, a promise of a future together that neither had imagined possible 2 weeks ago. As predicted, the Marshal's men arrived by midday, bringing news that a wounded Thomas Reed had been apprehended trying to cross into Colorado territory. The senior deputy, a stern-faced man named Anderson, interviewed Amelia at length, recording her testimony about both the stagecoach robbery and the attack on the cabin. "You're a lucky woman, Miss Oates," he commented when they had finished. "And brave, too. Your testimony will ensure these men pay for their crimes." Preparation for Amelia's departure to Denver began immediately. The marshal's office had arranged for a heavily guarded stagecoach to transport her the following morning. Liam helped with the arrangements, securing her a proper traveling outfit and personal items to replace those lost in the fire. Their last evening together was spent at Dover Station's small hotel, sharing a quiet dinner in the public dining room under the watchful eye of Deputy Anderson. Despite the lack of privacy, they managed to convey with looks and brief touches what they couldn't say aloud. "Write to me," Amelia requested as they said goodnight at her door, the deputy standing at a discreet distance down the hall. "Tell me about the rebuilding, about your plans." "Every week," Liam promised, "and you'll tell me about Denver, about your safety." "Every week," she echoed, reaching up to touch his face briefly. "It won't be long, Liam." "Not long at all," he agreed, though they both knew that weeks would feel like years. Morning came too quickly. Liam stood on the boardwalk outside the hotel as Amelia boarded the stagecoach, surrounded by 4 armed deputies. She looked back at him one last time, a smile that was both sad and hopeful on her face. Then the door closed, and the coach pulled away, taking her toward safety but away from him. Sheriff Wilson came to stand beside him as the dust from the departing stage settled. "She'll be all right, O'Malley. The marshal's office doesn't take chances with important witnesses." "I know," Liam replied, his eyes still on the distant coach. "Just feels wrong, not being there to protect her myself." Wilson clapped him on the shoulder. "You saved her life twice over already. Now let the law do its job." He paused, then added, "Deputy Simmons rode out to what's left of your place this morning. Said there's not much standing, but they found 2 bodies identified as the Calhoun brothers' cousins from up near Laramie." The news confirmed what Liam had suspected. Reed had brought reinforcements for his attack, men connected to the Calhouns. The conspiracy had been larger than anyone realized. "With Reed in custody and the Calhoun brothers accounted for, that should be all of them," Wilson continued. "The circuit judge will be through in about 2 months. You'll need to testify then." "I'll be here," Liam assured him. "In the meantime, I've got rebuilding to do." The following weeks passed in a blur of activity. Liam salvaged what he could from the burned cabin, then set about constructing a new home on the same site. This time, he built larger, with more windows and a proper second bedroom. He hired men from town to help with the heavy work, wanting the structure completed as quickly as possible. Letters traveled between Wyoming and Denver weekly, as promised. Amelia wrote of the strange experience of being both protected and confined, of the kindness of the marshal's wife who had taken her under her wing, of her growing impatience to return. Liam shared details of the rebuilding, of plans for expanding his small ranch, of the wildflowers that had begun to carpet the meadow where they had walked together. Between the lines of practicalities lay their growing feelings, expressed with increasing openness as the weeks passed. "I dream of you," she wrote in one letter that Liam read so many times the paper became soft at the folds. "Of your voice, your hands, your eyes that see me so clearly. The marshal says it may be another month before the trial. Each day feels like a year." "The house is nearly finished," he replied. "I've built a proper porch where we can watch the sunset. There's a school in need of a teacher in Dover Station, if teaching still calls to you. Or there's land enough here to build whatever future we decide upon together." 2 months after their separation, Liam received a telegram from Denver. Reed and Calhoun's convicted, sentenced to hang, returning on Thursday's stage. He read the simple message a dozen times, relief and anticipation building with each reading. It was over. She was coming back. Dover Station bustled with activity that Thursday as Liam waited for the Denver stage, his hat in his hands, his best shirt freshly ironed. The town had changed subtly in the months since Amelia had left. A new storefront had opened, selling ready-made clothing. The saloon had been repainted. Work had begun on a proper schoolhouse at the edge of town. The distant rumble of wheels announced the stage's approach before it came into view. Liam straightened, his heart pounding as if he'd run for miles. Around him, the usual crowd gathered to meet the station master, a few curious onlookers, relatives awaiting passengers. When the coach finally rolled to a stop in a cloud of dust, Liam found he couldn't move. What if she had changed her mind? What if her feelings, born in crisis and nurtured through letters, didn't survive the reality of reunion? The door opened, and a travel-weary businessman descended, followed by an elderly couple. And then, finally, Amelia appeared in the doorway. She was different, somehow more poised, perhaps, her hair arranged more elegantly than he remembered, her traveling suit fashionable by Denver standards. For a moment, doubt crept in. Did she still belong in his world of open skies and hard work? Then her eyes found his across the small crowd, and her face transformed with a smile of such pure joy that all his doubts vanished in an instant. She practically flew down the steps, heedless of propriety, and into his waiting arms. "You're here," she whispered against his neck, her arms tight around him. "You're really here." "Where else would I be?" he replied, holding her as if she might disappear again. "Welcome back, Amelia." They created a minor scandal, embracing so publicly in the middle of the street, but neither cared about the curious glances and knowing smiles around them. After so long apart, the simple contact was too precious to forego for the sake of convention. When they finally stepped apart, Liam noticed Sheriff Wilson approaching, his expression pleased but professional. "Miss Oates," Wilson greeted her. "Glad to see you safely returned. I'll need you to stop by the office tomorrow to sign some final documents, but that can wait. I imagine you're eager to get settled after your journey." "Thank you, Sheriff," Amelia replied, her hand finding Liam's. "Yes, I'm very eager to see home." The word carried weight beyond its simple syllable, a promise and a declaration rolled into one. Wilson nodded, understanding perfectly what remained unsaid. "O'Malley's built quite the house while you've been gone," he commented, a twinkle in his eye. "Proper place for a family, folks are saying." Amelia blushed, but her grip on Liam's hand tightened. "I look forward to seeing it." After collecting Amelia's trunk and saying their goodbyes to Wilson, they rode together toward the rebuilt cabin, now truly a small house, with its fresh cut timber still golden in the afternoon sun. "It's beautiful, Liam," Amelia said as they approached, taking in the broad porch, the chimney of river stone, the neat garden already producing early vegetables. "Just as you described in your letters." "It's not finished yet," he cautioned. "Still needs painting, and the inside furniture is pretty basic. But it's sound and warm, and it's perfect," she interrupted, smiling at his nervousness. "Because you built it." They dismounted, and Liam helped her down, keeping his hands at her waist longer than necessary. The separation had changed them both. There was a new confidence in Amelia, a certainty that hadn't been there before, and Liam found himself responding to it with a boldness of his own. "Before we go inside," he said, "there's something I need to ask you." Amelia's eyes widened as he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "Liam." "I know it's fast," he began, echoing the words they'd exchanged in Doc Morgan's back room all those weeks ago. "But I've had months to think about this, to be certain." He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band set with a small diamond. "I love you, Amelia Oates. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes, but her smile was radiant. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you, Liam O'Malley." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her with all the passion that had built during their separation. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "Welcome home," he whispered. "I am home," she replied, her arms around his neck. "Wherever you are is home now." They were married 2 weeks later in Dover Station's small church, with Ellie Hawkins, Sheriff Wilson, and a handful of townspeople as witnesses. Amelia wore a dress of pale blue silk that she'd purchased in Denver, and Liam wore a new suit that felt stiff, but worth the discomfort for the look in his bride's eyes when she saw him waiting at the altar. After a brief honeymoon in Denver, a proper one this time, without marshals or trials, they returned to their home on the plains. Amelia took the teaching position at Dover Station's new school, riding in 3 days a week while helping Liam with the ranch on the other days. Word of her survival and testimony at the trial had spread, of course, making her something of a local celebrity. New settlers arriving in the territory often asked to meet the lady who survived the river, a title Amelia accepted with grace and good humor. As summer turned to autumn, and autumn to winter, they settled into a rhythm of work and companionship that deepened their love beyond the intensity of its beginnings. The house expanded with a new room for Ellie when she visited, additional furniture crafted by Liam's hands, curtains and quilts sewn by Amelia in the evenings before the fire. On a crisp spring morning, almost exactly a year after Liam had found Amelia half alive on the riverbank, she woke him with news that transformed their lives once again. "A baby," he repeated, wonder and joy making his voice unsteady. "You're certain?" "As certain as one can be," she confirmed, her hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. "Dr. Morgan confirmed it yesterday. Next winter there will be 3 of us in this house." Liam gathered her into his arms, overwhelmed by happiness and a fierce protectiveness that surpassed even what he'd felt when she was in danger. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "Both of you so much." Life on the frontier was never easy, but it was rich with purpose and meaning. As Amelia's pregnancy progressed, Liam expanded the house again, adding a nursery with a large window facing east so the morning sun would warm it. Ellie moved in permanently to help with the baby and the household, her own small cabin having grown too lonely as she aged. Their daughter, Eleanor Sarah O'Malley, was born on a snow-covered December night with Ellie and Dr. Morgan in attendance. Liam paced the porch despite the cold, returning inside at the sound of a newborn's cry to find his wife tired but radiant, a tiny bundle in her arms. "She's perfect," Amelia whispered as he approached the bed cautiously. "Come meet your daughter, Liam." Holding his child for the first time, Liam felt the final pieces of his world fall into place. The war, the years of solitude, the violence that had brought Amelia to him, all of it had led to this moment, this family, this love that had bloomed against all odds. "My 2 beautiful girls," he murmured, sitting carefully beside Amelia on the bed. "My heart." As the winter winds howled outside, the small family remained warm and safe within the home they'd built together. The river that had nearly claimed Amelia's life flowed peacefully beneath a layer of ice, its dangers tamed by the changing seasons. And in the quiet of their bedroom, Liam and Amelia shared a look that said more than words ever could, a look of gratitude for the journey that had brought them together and the future that stretched before them, full of promise and possibility. "You're safe now," Liam whispered to both his wife and daughter, an echo of the words he'd spoken on the riverbank that fateful day. "And always will be." "We all are," Amelia replied, her fingers intertwining with his. "Safe and home and loved." And in that moment, it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.